Good afternoon. Welcome to today's CRM User Group webinar featuring customizing lookup views and quick create forms. My name is Christina Felchlin, Support Manager at Ledgeview Partners. For our agenda today, we picked today's topics from the most viewed Ledgeview CRM blog posts. Today we're going to cover customizing lookup views and then move into quick create forms, including how to create them, best practices, where to use, and how to maintain them. Michael is then going to answer the user submitted questions, and I will close out today's webinar with the upcoming CRM User Group webinar details. For housekeeping, to ensure the best audio quality for all attendees, we have everyone on listen-only mode. If you have a question, please submit those in the question pane of your GoToWebinar control panel. If time will allow, we'll answer during today's session. If not, we promise to follow up offline. With all Ledgeview webinars, today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand after the live session. All registered attendees will receive an email this afternoon with an access link to the recording, as well as the presentation slides. Now, let's hear about customizing lookup views and quick create forms from our CRM expert, Michael Dodds.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Christina. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining today's webinar. I'm really excited about today's topic, and I know winter is fast approaching, and it's right around the corner. So let's get to this webinar. First, we're going to start out with customized lookup views. So many of you have noticed that when you're running a lookup view, in the first section, as you can see here on the right, it's going to show the name, email address, and phone number, and that's how many are set up. This is customizable. This can be changed. Those columns can be changed to show different items. And I'm going to talk about how to do this, and I'm going to show you exactly how that can be done as well. So the first step is to check which view is being used for the lookup field. You can change the view you're searching with, but it's always going to default to that lookup view. And if you're editing a system view, you need to go to Customize the System, select the entity of the lookup field. So if you're looking up to accounts, you want to go to the account entity, and then select the Views section, open up the view, and edit the columns. And as I mentioned, the first three columns of that lookup view, that's what's showing in that first section. When you first click Enter for a lookup view, and it gives you the drop down of the first 10 records, those three columns, those three items there are the first three columns in your lookup view. So those can be changed if you move the columns and change the first three columns in that lookup view. And if you're doing a personal view, the same thing can be done. You just navigate to Advanced Find, select the entity of the lookup. So again, if you're doing accounts, you want to set that look for to accounts. Select the view from the Use Saved View section, and then edit the columns. That's how you can edit those different views within the lookup searching section. So we're going to jump into CRM, and I'm going to show you exactly how to edit a system view and how it will affect those first three columns within the first 10 record section. So if we go to our main drop-down, and then we go to Settings, and then we go to Customizations. So from Customizations, once this loads, we go to Customize the System, and this pops up in a new screen. And this takes a little bit to load because it's loading all of the entities, all of the data within CRM. So it's a lot of information that it's loading for you. That's why it can sometimes take a little bit of time. But once it loads, it's a great resource for system administrators. So on the right here, you can see this little drop down next to Entities. Click on the little drop down, and then we're going to go to Account. So we click on the drop down next to Entities and then next to Accounts, and then we click on Views. And then this will load all of the views. So this is the first time you're navigating into the system. Before, we're just going along the headers along the left-hand side. Now it's actually loading the information for us. That's why it does take a little bit of time. And as you can see here, there's several different views. And the most important ones to look at are your lookup views, and then the main system views that you would ever use in the lookup section. We're going to start with the account lookup view. So we're going to double click that. It's going to open the view for us. and it's going to allow us to edit this view. So it's going to start off here with the columns that are existing. So right now, in that first 10 records section, it's going to show us account name, email, and main phone number. Now, if you want to change this and say, okay, well, email address really isn't going to help me, but primary contact would, I can move the account name, primary contact, and I know each account has a main phone number. So I'm going to change out my first 3 columns right here in account name, primary contact, and main phone. Those 3 will now be represented in that drop down of the first 10 records. And now for the account lookup view, we can also add columns. So if we're looking at information in the lookup view and we go, okay, I really want to know more about the primary contact. So I'm going to change my record type to the primary contact, and I specifically want to know who the primary contact's email address is, because the account email address doesn't do me much good. So I changed the record type to primary contact, and I'm going to scroll down to email. Going to check mark email, and then as you can see, that's added right here. So if the main phone number of the account doesn't do much good for you, you can always switch it out with the email of the primary contact. And then we're going to save and close our view. And so this is saving all the changes that we just did, so it takes a minute to save all those changes. And then once it's saved, very, very important, anytime you're in Customize the System, you want to publish your customizations. If you don't publish those customizations, it's not going to actually reflect within CRM. It'll just be in kind of a housing state before it actually gets pushed to CRM to show for all users. So that's a very important piece whenever you're doing anything in Customize the System. And publishing does take a minute because it's publishing all the changes. Any changes that you made, it's publishing all those and pushing those to CRM. So you wait for those to finish, and then what you'll do is you'll navigate over to our contact screen, because that has a direct lookup to accounts. So if we go to Sales, Contacts, and if we go into a brand new contact, this will show you exactly what those 10 records, those first 10 records look like, and how our changes affected the lookup. So if we click on New, it's going to load the form for us. And then if we go into account name, and if I just click Enter, as you can see here, instead of showing us before, which was the account name, the phone number, and email address, it's now showing us the account name, the primary contact, and the phone number. So this is the first 10 records section. Now if I go to look up more, if I go to look up more records, you're going to see all those column changes I made, including email, the primary contact, is now in here as well. And in this section, you can change the view you're looking in. So if you wanted to do just active accounts, this is where you would be able to go into the same Customize the System, make the adjustments to the active accounts view, and they would reflect right here. So that's how you make those changes for the account lookup forms and customizing the first 10 records section, and also customizing those views within the lookup search. So if we jump back into our PowerPoint presentation, next we're going to go into how to create a quick create form. Now I know there's a lot of creates in there. A quick create form is simply a very fast, efficient way of getting a data record into CRM. Now there is only one way to create and edit quick create forms, and that is through the settings, customization, and customize the system. That's exactly where we were before for editing the views for the lookup view. So you'll navigate to the desired entity, and instead of clicking on the views like we did last time, we're going to click on forms. And then there will be a create button. Click on new and then create. There will be a quick create form. And then you can also edit them, and you'll just open an existing quick create form and make your edits that way. I'm going to pull over CRM. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. So from our main drop-down, we'll go back to the arrow next to entities. We're going to go to accounts again, and we're going to click on forms this time. So again, just like last time with loading the views, it's loading all of the available forms for accounts for you to make the edits and adjustments or create new forms. So it does take a little bit to load. So if you want to create a new form, you'll just click on New, Quick Create Form. And this will look very familiar to some of you system administrators. This will look just like the form editing of an existing form within CRM. It's just going to be a little bit smaller. So you have more of a quick create. So then you can add your fields, add tabs, add in spacers. It's not as robust as a regular form, and that's because it's intended to be very quick. And the other way is to editing an existing quick create form. So account already has a quick create form. If you decide that I really want to add a field here, we have a new field that we're adding for the account, but I want this to be added to our quick create form. Simply open up the quick create form, find your field on the right hand side. This will only show the ones that are not being used on the form, and then simply drag it over to the side or double click, and it will add the form for you. And then you would just do a save and publish. Always want to publish your forms, because again, otherwise it won't be pushing that information out to the quick create form. So we're going to leave this page. We're going to jump back into our PowerPoint presentation. So some best practices for creating quick create views: you really want to limit the number of fields to really informational and business critical. For example, with a contact, you really want to make sure you get their first and last name, the account they're associated to, their email address and phone numbers, and then some address information. If there's anything that's a required field on the form, on the regular main form, I recommend putting those on the quick create form, because that way all required fields are done by the time they save it. If there's a large amount of required fields and you're not going to get to that information until later in the conversation, then leave those off the quick create form. I also recommend utilizing data mapping, especially if you're creating a contact from an account screen. You can pull over information automatically from that account screen into the quick create form. For example, the account name, the account address, the main phone number. You can pull that information directly from the account form. That way your users aren't having to replicate information and enter it twice. Apply existing business rules to the quick create form. So if you have business rules set up for the main form that affect any of the fields that you're adding to the quick create form, I recommend applying those existing business rules to the quick create form. And all that is within the business rules section. There's a space at the top that chooses which form it's on. You can just choose all forms. That way it'll be replicated on all forms for you. And as a note, workflows that trigger on create, that's how they're triggered, they still work for quick create form. So once you click save for the quick create form and it creates your record, those workflows will trigger. Now I want to go into where to use quick create forms, or really where they are used. And this applies only if a quick create form has been created and it's been enabled, because there are ways to disable quick create forms. So by default, when you're adding a new record through a subgrid, so if you have, what a subgrid is it'll show your existing contacts associated to an account. You can add that kind of subgrid to show that information. Usually there's a plus sign that allows you to add new contacts. That will default to a quick create form. And that's where you want to use the data mapping to pull that information over from the account form. The quick create button in the navigation ribbon And I will go into CRM, and I'm actually going to show you where these are exactly. So the quick create button in the navigation ribbon, in the global search, when you search for an item and then there's a plus button right next to the account or contact, that's going to use a quick create form. Now, however, where it says the create a new record, that by default uses the standard main form, not the quick create form. And then also associated views. And I'll show you how to get to each one of these. Now again, as I stated before, quick create forms can be disabled per entity through Customize the System. This is something your system administrator can do for you. So we're going to jump back into CRM, and I'm going to show you where each of these are located. So if we go to our main screen, up here, this is your main navigation ribbon or your blue ribbon. Right here, this plus button, that's a quick create button. So if I do account, this is my quick create form. So that's automatically done. And then if I do a search for an account or anything up in this global search section, see these little plus signs next to leads, accounts, and contacts? If I click on the plus, it's going to automatically use a quick create form. Now, this new record section, if I click here, it's going to drop me into a main. So that's what is meant by the new record section. And if we go into an existing account, I'll show you how an associated contact, you can use a quick create form right from there. It's another way of creating a record within CRM that uses quick create. So once we go into Alpine Ski House, we click on this little drop-down caret next to Alpine Ski House and click on, let's say, Opportunities, and click on Add New Opportunity. It's going to be a quick create form as well. Maintaining quick create forms. Once you have them set and you've been using them and they're really working great, you always want to maintain them, keep them up to date. If you ever add new fields to the main form, you want to evaluate if these fields need to be added to the quick create form. Are they important pieces of information when we want to gather right away? As before, when creating quick create forms, if you add data mapping or new business rules, evaluate if those need to be added to the quick create forms because they affect fields on that quick create form. So set up the data map to the quick create form and have the business rules set to all forms. So that's all for our topic today of customizing the lookup view and quick create forms. Next, we're going to jump into some user questions. Our first question from a user is, can the CRM automatically run a report and email it to a set list of people at the end of every workday? That's a fantastic question and a really great way of automating some work for you. Now, for on-premise, this is much, much easier. For on-premise, this can be accomplished simply by using SSRS. This is something that your system administrator can do for you, or that is something that us here at Ledgeview Partners would be happy to help you with as well. The reason why it's easier for on-premise is because there's already a server out there that can host this. For online, however, because there isn't a server, this can be done, but it is a large amount of hours to implement, and it requires a staging SQL database or an Azure server. And Azure servers do have an added cost to them. So it is something that can be done, but for online there is a larger project base to it. And that's something that we can definitely help with if you have any questions. Our next question from a user is, how do I set up a business process flow and add stages? That's an excellent question. First, I'm going to kind of tell you where you need to go, and then I'm going to jump into CRM and show you how to do this. You want to navigate to Settings from the main drop-down menu, and then Processes. You're going to click on New, and it's going to bring up this form on the right. You're going to set the entity, so this can be done on any entity. It can be done on cases, leads, opportunities, accounts, anything that can add a process flow, just like adding a workflow. Name the new process, And also you want to make sure that you set your category to the business process flow. Then you're going to click on Save. It's going to bring up this bottom section, the business process flow, and then you set your stage name. You can name your stage, and then you can set the different fields. One thing to note is you want to make sure any new fields that are going to be used on this stage name that are in this business process flow that don't already exist, you want to create those before adding them to the stage name, because otherwise or to the business process flow, because they won't exist yet. So then set the fields you want in the business process flow, and then you can set if they're required or not. And one thing to note, when setting them as required in a business process flow, all that means is those fields have to be filled out before you can move to the next stage. They don't affect whether you can save the form or not. So let's jump into CRM and I'll show you how easy this is. So from our main drop-down menu, we'll go to Settings and then Processes. And then you would simply click on New. And this is where you would enter your process name. The category would be Business Process Flow. And then you would set your entity. For the purposes of today's conversation, I have one pre-created that I'm going to jump into and show you. So a really easy way to find your business process flows is to sort it by category, and then you can take a look at your business process flows. So we're going to jump into the opportunity. I apologize, I needed to go into activated processes first. You want to make sure you always have your view correct, because if you don't have your view correct, there might be some business process flows that you're missing. So we're going to go down here, we're going to take a look at opportunity, the opportunity sales process. And then we're going to move this over. So here is where you name your stage, so you can change this to anything you want. If you wanted to change this to information gathering, you could change that as well. And then you simply click on the plus button to add your new step. Click Enter the Data, and you can pull the information right in here. It's going to set the step name to equal the value, and then you just set the required. And then it'll be next stage name, next stage name. And this is where we added a branch, where we said if the opportunity discount, so his discount percent right here, if this is ever greater than or equal to 15%, we want to add a new stage name. We want to branch it off of that because it's conditional. And then we just simply add this one stage name, whether the discount is approved or not, and you have to have this filled in before moving to the next stage. So you can really branch out and make things required and create new field or new stages based off of information in the previous stage. So it's a really great way of automating and making sure that your users are following the correct process and aren't missing any items. So let's go back into our questions. Our next question is, my Outlook crashes after my installation of the Outlook client. What should I do? When your CRM is, or excuse me, when your Outlook is crashing right after installation, it tends to mean this. It's not 100% always going to be this, but this is definitely the best place to start. You want to navigate to your Start button and search for the Configuration Wizard. There's going to be a configuration. Just highlight it and click Delete. Then go back into Outlook, click on File, Options, and then on the left-hand side there's going to be an add-in section. And at the bottom there will be Go. So this is how you get to your add-ins. Why this is usually being caused is because there's a large number of add-ins that aren't necessary or aren't being used. And usually when you install Outlook for the first time or you upgrade Outlook, it puts in all these add-ins that usually aren't necessary. So uncheck any add-ins that you do not use. Usually recommend only keeping the Exchange add-in and the CRM add-ins. At that point, you're going to want to open the File Explorer and clear out your Outlook cache. If you ever have any questions on how to do that, we can definitely help you with that. There's a little bit of a process to it. Then you want to go back into that configuration wizard and add a new configuration. All you're going to do is select your drop-down and select CRM Online, or if you're on-premise, you're going to enter your on-premise CRM URL. Enter your username and password. Takes about 5 to 10 minutes for it to completely configure depending on the speed. Then open Outlook back up, and it should not be crashing at that point. Our next question is, can you switch all records from one user to another even though one user has been disabled? The answer to this is you can definitely do that. And simply all you want to do is navigate to settings, security, and then the users. You want to make sure you change your view to disabled users, because otherwise they're not going to show on enabled users because you've removed their license. Find that disabled user, open the user's record, and then at the top there's going to be a reassign records button. If you click on the reassign records, you can reassign all the records to another person. So if somebody took their place, you can send all those records to that one person. Now, if you have somebody who left the company and you're going to disperse their accounts and opportunities off to different people, that can still be done. I do not recommend this way of doing it. You're going to want to use Advanced Find. So you're going to want to create an Advanced Find search. You need to do this for each entity. So accounts, contacts, leads, etc. Set the owner for the filtering to equal that disabled user. When you're in the lookup section, make sure you change that view selector to disabled users. Then run the Advanced Find. Check the records you want to assign to a different user. There's going to be an Assign button up top. Click Assign, select the new owner. It's going to go to them automatically. Just repeat this for each new owner and repeat for each entity. There is another way to do this. You can edit it via an export and re-import. There's a lot of different owners you're putting this to, like 5+ instead of 1, 2 or 3. You might want to set that Advanced Find, export the information, and only have the record name and the owner. Change the owner and then re-import those records. That'll be a really fast way of changing them as well. Our next question, is there a way to remove the email format of the mandatory information at xyz.com from the billing email address field on accounts? This user happens to be in CRM 2011. And this does not just apply to CRM 2011. This applies to all CRM. If you have this already created, it means it was set and this field was set and formatted to be in that email format. To do this, you need to remove that field, create a new field. So my recommendation to do this is to create a new email field, and all you're going to do is make this a single text line and no formatting, because the way it's set right now is it's a single text line, but it's formatted to email, so it has to follow that formation. So once you've created that new field, add it to the form, keep the previous email field on the form, and then create an on-demand workflow that essentially copies the information that exists in the business email address field and copies it to the new email field that you created. That way you're not losing any information. Set up an Advanced Find filter to only show records with data in that business email address field. Then run the on-demand on the workflow for all the records. Our last question for the day is, what are the new features in 2016? This user is looking to move to 2016. So just as a refresher, some of the new great features that are part of CRM 2016 is the service enhancements. Knowledge management specifically, you can now put diagrams and pictures and articles where really before it was just text. And then you can email these knowledge articles off to various users and contacts as well. Case enhancements, There's now a process flow. So that business process flow that we talked about earlier, there's now one on cases. You can search knowledge articles. You can streamline routing. So it makes doing the service portion of CRM much, much more efficient. And that's what the focus of the CRM 2016 was mostly on the service section. There's also now an interactive service hub. This is separate from CRM. So when you click on the interactive service hub, it's going to open in a new section. So there's a little bit less customizable pieces to it, but the way it was created is very interactive. So you have more dynamic dashboards. So when you change certain fields, it's going to immediately update those dashboards to reflect. So if you're looking at only high priority cases, it's going to change and reflect those dashboards to be only high priority. It's a very, very cool feature for anybody using service. You can also resolve, cancel a case, do anything right from that interactive service hub as well. Another new item is field service. So if you have people that you dispatch out to various companies for service, you can help with this field service. Helps with dispatching and also helps to understand what your field service reps are working on. So it's specific to that niche. And then there was a new CRM app for Outlook. This is brand new. And it can be used on computers utilizing Outlook 2013 or 2016. We do recommend staying with the Outlook plugin just because this is brand new technology. It also works on the Outlook web, Windows Phone, iPhones, and Android phones as well. So where the Outlook client did not work on the web and did not work on phones, this does. It's a much, much lighter footprint as well. You can again pick which entity to track against just like you can in the Outlook client today. And it will only track emails into CRM. It will not track appointments, however. And you don't have to open up CRM to view related records. It's going to show that right on the app. One thing to note, you must be on server-side sync to be able to do this. So again, with it being brand new technology, and this is something you're interested in, I highly recommend having a conversation at it and making sure that you are set up with your email configuration to be able to utilize this new feature. OneNote and Delve are now also integrated with CRM. Specifically OneNote, this is something where you can attach notes right to a record, just like you could with SharePoint and documents. OneNote is a new item that you can do this for.
As always, Michael, thank you for the great content. We encourage you to continue to ask your CRM questions before the next meeting. We want to make sure that we're getting the answers to your most sought after questions. If you are looking for past webinar recordings, please click the recording link in the email I will send this afternoon. It will bring you to our user group webinar library. You can scroll through the list and view those you're most interested in. We have webinars in there for advanced finds, reporting, sales activities, marketing, Outlook clients, and many more. Our next CRM user group webinar will be Tuesday, November 15th at 1 p.m. Central, and our topic will be changing record ownership and lookup fields versus option sets. On behalf of Michael and I and all of us at Ledgeview, thank you for spending your time with us today.